Welcome to Green and Gold FC.
And then poked home by Tim Cahill. Australia have done it! From right the Matildas into history. Cue the party! The best team of the A-League era. And it goes. Oh, it's a save that means the world to Australia.
Hello and welcome to a Matildas-themed episode of Green and Gold FC. I am joined by resident Matildas expert on the forum, Adam, whose code name is Rebellious Feminist 74. How are you going, Adam?
Doing well, thank you.
So it's great to meet you in person. So for those who don't know at home, Adam has been basically turning the Matildas Abroad section and the Matildas section into as much detail as the Aussies Abroad section, and been following transfers and all the information when people are playing, how many minutes they're getting and how well they're doing over in Europe. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Adam, and how you got the passion for the Matildas and passion to really ultimately become a grassroots forum journalist.
I first got into the Matildas when we had the friendly against Scotland back in April 2023. I also followed the game against England in Brentford, where Charlotte Grant scored the first ever international goal. And I just started following the Matildas throughout the Women's World Cup, as well as the unfortunate disastrous Olympics campaign. And since then, I've been a self-proclaimed Matildas tragic, a fervent Matildas supporter, and obviously an expert on all things Matildas.
That's fantastic, and I can certainly vouch for your expertise. I read your stuff very, very regularly. It's been helping to basically get an idea for where the Matildas are, how they're doing, how some of the young Matildas are doing, what clubs they're going for, are they playing, and everything like that. And it's the most informative Matildas information I've seen anywhere on the internet. So thank you so much for that. So let's talk about, I first want to start with, where do you think the Matildas are at and where they're going, before we get into the short term about the recent games and the squad selections, because there's a lot of talking points. But let's start with where the Matildas are going in the long term. I've seen quite a few of the youth games that we play against Japan and in Asia, some of the under-20s, under-17s, and some of the scores have not been very flattering. However, it made me worry that this was going to be the same as the Golden Generation 2006, where we have this huge hype around the men's team, and then the youth aren't there, and then we don't regenerate, and then eventually we decline. However, it seems that from your work on the forum, watching some of the youth, that the youth are actually doing really well in their club careers. There's lots of exciting young prospects, and of course, there's lots of exciting prospects in the Ninja A-League as well. Is that a fair assessment, or am I being a bit overly optimistic there?
I think now the Matildas are in a period of transition, obviously, because we're just coming off the back of Samani's third stint as head coach and into the start of Montemurro's tenure. We've also got the 2026 Qualification Cup on home soil, which is the culmination of the current major tournament cycle. I think we are doing well in terms of transitioning from experience to youth, in terms of bringing all the new players like Alana Murphy, Sean Fryer, even Sean Fryer's sister Lainey. And with the recent international window call-ups, we've given Adriana Taranto her first call-up. Grace Kulamu, who did quite well for Brisbane Roar, she's gotten a call-up as well. And I do feel that one of the main talking points we do have to talk about is the rise of Holly McNamara, or rather her remarkable comeback from her third ACL injury in the span of 6 years. Because obviously in the first game against Slovenia, she scored her first ever international goal. And I do feel that Holly McNamara is destined for big things. And I was really excited to see Holly McNamara get a move to an overseas league, only to find out a couple of days ago that she would in fact extend with Melbourne City for season 2025-26.
Well, that's good news for Melbourne City at least, but of course we wish them all to do go to the biggest clubs overseas. So let's talk about Montenero's first squad selection. There were lots of new names. I think there's well over 30 people in the squad, and many new names, some from the A-League as well. So you told me off forum that some of the biggest talking points were some of the people that he didn't selected. So we'll get into the people that he did select, which were new people. But first, I was wondering if you can elaborate on that. Who are some big names and who are some interesting faces which he didn't select, which perhaps are a bit controversial?
Okay, yes. So I think One of the main names that wasn't selected in the Matilda squad was Daniela Galic. I feel that Galic had quite a good season with FC20 in the Rowan Eredivisie. She ended up winning the double, and I think that not having Galic with this window is quite a blow for the Matildas, especially since for this window we didn't have Caitlin Ford or Steph Catley since they were both on personal leave. Tamika Yallop obviously is injured, and we also don't have Mary Fowler because she did her ACL in the Women's FA Cup semi-final recently. Another big name that wasn't included was Sean Fire's twin sister Lainey. I thought Lainey Fire had quite a good season in the A-League Women's for Brisbane Roar, and it was so good for her to get a Matilda's call up and also make her debut at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona during the She Believes Cup when she'd only played a couple of games of pro football.
So those are very interesting names. Obviously, winning the double in the Netherlands, that sounds like a really, really promising player. So that does sound like a big omission. Of course, some of those were forced by injuries. So now let's turn our attention to the actual squad and who was selected. Obviously, we had some big talking points about who wasn't selected. There was a dual international, which got everyone excited. We managed to get them to declare for us. They're for Argentina and Australia. And quite a few young players, quite new faces. Who excited you? Did the dual international excite you, or were there any other players which are new, which really excited you?
So I wasn't really excited by Jacinta Galvarotchi being named into the Matilda squad, but it is good to see that Montemurro is bringing in many of the fringe Matildas players like Riley Henry and Remy Stevenson, as well as the mainstays you'd expect, such as the likes of Ellie Carpenter, Kyra Cooney-Cross, Charlotte Grant. It's good to see Emily Gilnick finally make the Matilda squad again, and such a remarkable comeback for Chloe Berryhill. You may know that in the December window, in our games against Chinese Taipei, Chloe Berryhill only managed a few minutes against Chinese Taipei at Amy Park before unfortunately having to come off with concussion. She was in tears actually when the national anthem was playing because she knew that she'd finally gotten the chance to play for Matildas, and to have that robbed from her is so cruel. And I'm so glad to see her in series for both Panama and Slovenia. And it's good to see her back in the green and gold, I think.
For sure. So let's turn our attention to the games themselves. Slovenia, not a powerhouse team, but they are a team which has beaten Greece recently. They've beaten Ireland. They're pretty decent form. Those aren't pushovers. Slovenia don't look like a pushover. And we won the first game 3-0 after having 58% of possession. But my impression from social media and the forum is people were actually very, very skeptical of the performance. By contrast, the second game was a 1-1 draw, and people are actually much more happy with the performance despite the result. Are people maybe emphasizing style over results a bit too much? Or do you think that maybe that's a fair the fair assessment was a fair assessment and that the results were a bit misleading?
I think that already the style of football we're playing under Montemurro is quite good. It's a refresh from the style of football we've seen under Tony Gustafsson and later Tom Samani in his third stint in charge. We're definitely making more use of the through ball, and having a look at the stats lines, we did lead most of the stats, but Slovenia definitely are no pushovers. They've shown that they can be on par with the Matildas, and they can match our physicality, our attacking style of play with their own attacking style of play. And on Sunday, they managed to actually score their first ever international goal against the Matildas. And I feel that defensively, we were a bit shaky throughout the two-game series, but that is to be expected given that we are emphasizing more of an attacking, sort of vertical tiki-taka style of play that makes use of the through ball, and there is a risk that when being reliant on the through ball and lobbing the ball into space, that you will get intercepted.
Yeah, so I noticed for the first game, we were quite efficient in the final third. Of course, we got 3 goals, but we were, even though we got 58% possession in the first game, it always felt awkward, always felt like we're on the verge of losing the ball, always felt like we're never in control of possession. In the second game, we had some beautiful build-up. And that goal that we scored was a very pure goal, right? It was through interplay around the box against a set defense, one of the hardest goals to score. And that was really, really promising, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that the build-up play in the second game was promising. Unfortunately, in the latter part of the game, close to second half stoppage time, we did end up getting complacent. I think defense ended up getting a bit shaky in stoppage time because having a look back at the game, you can see that Winona Heatley and Courtney Nevin were trying to mark the Slovenian players, but then they ended up going for a 2-on-1, which then led to them losing control of the ball and failing to defend, and that's how we end up conceding the goal. I think that also one of the main talking points is whether Mackenzie Arnold is sadly regressing and whether we turn to Tegan Micah as our starting keeper going forwards, especially since we have a home Women's Asian Cup next year and the fact that many of the teams that qualify won't be similar to Slovenia in terms of this style of play. Obviously, you have the big powerhouses like Japan, China, North Korea, but you also need to be aware of the powerhouses who will play a physical style of football and who will try to match the Matildas in terms of physicality and try to be better than us in terms of all aspects of our game.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I was wondering, in looking at these results and looking at the performances, you have some coaches where they manage to reach a high level fairly soon and you get roughly what you expected of them fairly soon. So for the men's game, Popovic is like that. And that's because they set the defensive structures first and then build on attack on top of it. And yes, they do improve, but you get results pretty quickly and you get improvement pretty quickly. But then you get other coaches like Ange Postecoglou from the men's game who will start with getting the attack right, which often means you're a bit leaky at the back, a bit shaky, and you often can go backwards before you go forwards, but then you reach a very, very good height. And I was wondering on Joe Montemurro's coaching philosophy, what can we expect going forward? Are we going to have this interim period of time where we are building on results and we need to be patient as a fan base as we implement Montemurro's philosophy? Or is this one of those cases where we get a good idea fairly quickly of what we can expect from Montemurro?
When Montemurro was announced as the new Matildas head coach and when he was unveiled by Heather Garrick Australia, he said that his style of play would be attacking first. We're definitely going more attacking first, straight on the front foot right off the bat with the through ball, trying to get the ball into the final thirds. I think a consequence of our attacking first philosophy is the fact that defense will be a bit shaky. Having seen the recent games against Slovenia, I do feel that Montemurro is making better use of players like Alana Kennedy and Winona Heatley in terms of having them play in the positions they're used to in club football. So for Angel City, Alana Kennedy is normally played in midfield. We saw that in game 2 for Lana Kennedy, and Winona Heatley is Naughty Island captain in a sort of centre-back role. I feel that Winona Heatley and Alana Kennedy are transitioning well to their roles at centre-back, but I do feel that some time is needed for the fan base to get used to this new style of play and also for the players to be able to adapt to the attack first style of play. So I feel that Montemurro wants to bring out the best in his players and have us fit the attack first philosophy. But I do feel that we need to work on not getting complacent when we are leading like we did in the second game against Slovenia, because defense ended up getting a bit shaky when we knew we were leading, and this complacency can lead to us conceding and dropping games or only managing to get draws in games that should ideally be winnable for us.
Absolutely, yeah. So the 1-1, of course, is happening. Although it's in a friendly early in tenure, it is against an opponent which we would expect to beat. However, with all the new faces, was there anyone which really pleasantly surprised you? You're excited about them and they performed as well as you thought they would? Or there's someone who you didn't know if they should be there, but they really exceeded your expectations?
Okay, so one of the main talking points is Holly McNamara. She'd had 3 ACLs in 6 years, and what a remarkable turnaround she had, and how good for her to get her first ever international goal. It's so exciting to see Holly McNamara finally hit the back of the net in the green and gold after so long and so many attempts without finding the back of the net. Also, I feel that Michelle Heyman is already shaping up to be a good replacement for Sam Kerr, but inevitably we will have to start looking towards youth as well as other fringe players like Chids and Remy Simpson, because eventually and inevitably Michelle Heyman is going to re-retire. She unretired pre-Olympics when Sam Kerr first did her ACL. I also feel that Emmy Hilnick had a good run in Matilda's colours, scoring her first international goal since our last game of 2024 in Geelong against Chinese Taipei. And she's also been doing well for Melbourne Victory in Clubland, so it's good to have Emmy Hilnick back up her remarkable club form with international form as well. But all in all, I feel the series was a mixed affair for the Matildas. I think that we managed to get a good insight into how Montemurro wants to coach the Matildas going forward. It's an exciting transition period for us as we head towards the culmination of the current major tournament cycle. And I do feel that we can win silverware. We are capable of winning silverware with the squad that we have. Selection policy needs to change in order to be better adapted to the style of football. We need players of the highest caliber still. We can't keep on relying on players like Emily Van Egmond to play for the Matildas and on green and gold, because eventually we will have to look past many of the players who are aging and look more towards fringe players like your Sean Fryers, your Lana Murphys, Holly Rustbeck also. And I do feel that the Matildas will have to decide which is the best way going forward for them to play with this style of football.
Absolutely. And it's exciting times over the next few months with all these fresh faces, learning about Montenero's new style and philosophy, and of course, preparing for the Asian Cup next year. So thank you so much for joining us, Adam. And if you are interested in learning more about the Matildas and just becoming hardcore, learning about all the players' careers, including the Fringe Matildas, please check out Adam's work on Green and Gold FC, where you'll see every single Matildas career followed in explicit detail. Thank you so much for joining us for this Matildas episode on Green and Gold FC. Don't forget you can join us on the forum. Also, we are available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help us out. But until next time, this is all we have time for, and it's bye for now.